Okay, we will actually try to work with materials on this video. This is a recap of what we were discussing on materials and light this week. When you start Blender, you have your standard cube, you have your camera, and you have your lights. Let me try to open again screencast. Perfect. So everything that we need to do actually switches on from the properties tab menu here, properties window here. And depending on what object you are going to be having selected, you will have a different set of buttons. So always remember, if you're looking for a button that is not there, maybe one of the things you need to do is to change the object. So we were trying to see what the camera sees in the default scene. So if I try to just go with render, I will get a very simple rendering of the cube. The cube in the scene is white. It has a really great background, and so on and so forth. And what I'm going to do now is go and click on the light and change into the data for the light, and just change it into red and render it again. And you'll see that immediately the whole environment turns red due to the light emitting light of red color. I'll press 7 to go on to the top view. I will select the light, and then again, as we did before with Shift D, I will double it. Duplicate it, sorry, and then I will change the color into cyan greenish kind of idea. And you see here that we have the object in the center of the field of view of the camera, right? So we are looking at this, and we have one lighting here and one lighting here. Some of the things that you must avoid is attempting to put the light between the object and the camera. So placing a light essentially here, because this will flood the light with light the whole object, and you'll get essentially zero shadows. So let's try and render now to see what we get. And you see that we get a green cyan face, a red face, and a mix on the top, right? And obviously, I can play around with multiple combinations. So overruns, for example, along with blue, and so on and so forth. So one of the ways we can change renders is by choosing the light. Obviously, another thing you can do is play with the power output of said lights. So you will see now that the blue becomes a lot more dominant in the scene, and so on and so forth. The other thing you can try to play with is changing the lights from a point to a sun, right? So this simulates natural light. This might be more interesting to the interior architects rather than anybody else. Or if you want to simulate essentially an outdoor scene, even though obviously the sun will never have a reddish or a blue color. And you see here that I get a very overlit kind of subject. Or you can go with a spot, which is more of a focused kind of idea. And here the application actually allows us to create a spotlight like so, and with the radius to change the size and the focus. So if we could, for example, try to only light part of the area like that. And also you can blend the edge of the cone of light. Let's see what that creates. And you see, I get a very distinct actual line here, which is created by the cone. And you can also create area lights, which are a lot of times useful for hidden lights or secondary lights that are useful to render the scene. I won't go too much into it now because the main point here is to talk about materials. So when we click on the selected cube, you see this simple material outline appearing here. And you can change this base color by going red. But you see it doesn't change at all the color here. It only would do so if I change the viewport shading by changing the viewport shading into a rendered or material preview kind of idea, right? So you can do that by pressing Z and you get the radial menu like this for shading. Or you can do so by using the upper right-hand corner buttons here. Now, another thing to consider is that you can actually also change the way the color appears on viewport display. So when I am without any kind of, so this is the solid shading. If I change this to something similar to the one I have, red, this doesn't actually represent the material color, but is there for organization purposes. And let's now remind ourselves how to deal with data. So I have added a monkey. This might be a door, a wall, a piece of textile, a fashion garment, anything you want. And I want to have essentially the same material that the cube has onto monkey, which is called Suzanne. So the cube material is called material. I'll name it red. And what I'll do is I will select the monkey and then shift left click the cube. So I select last the object I want to link materials from. And you'll see that Suzanne actually doesn't have a material linked. And what I'll do is I will go to add, link, transfer data, and go with link materials. And essentially what happens is Blender creates a link here to the data entry that you have with red here. This can also be used in another way where we can actually copy geometry data, right? So I could actually copy the Suzanne geometry onto the cube, and I would do that by clicking first on the cube, then on the source, so Suzanne, and going object, link, transfer data, link object data. And you see immediately how things change here, and my cube adopts the geometry of Suzanne. Another thing you can play with is various types of preview, but also try to experiment a lot with the types of surfaces here that will create a kind of different understanding of what you get on the viewport, and also the roughness and all of the other indicators that we get here by Blender. And let's try render. Yeah, we get a really flat render, which means our light is not really good enough. So let's try 8000. Still not good. So let's try to go back into specular BSDF with the red color. Let's try and see what that gives us. Yeah, a little bit better. So you see immediately I get the materiality of the monkey, but part of it is in the shade. So I will take this light forward, press 1 to go in front, and lower it so that it will light Suzanne a lot better. And there you go. you have a very nice way of portraying Suzanne with lights and materials and so on and so forth. Try playing about and understanding every time what effect each of these sliders has, and one of the ways to actually understand it visually is to play with them and then render again your images. And with this, I will see you next week.